Hannah pressed the dermal regenerator against the gash on her forearm, wincing as the device hummed to life. The wound wasn't deep, just a careless accident with a jagged piece of hull plating during repairs, but it bled enough to make a mess of her workstation. She didn't notice the 4 sets of luminescent eyes watching her from the corridor entrance until a low, chirping sound broke her concentration. The creche cubs tumbled into the medical bay, their scaled bodies rippling with bioluminescent patterns that signaled curiosity. They were barely a year old in galactic standard cycles, roughly equivalent to human 8-year-olds, and their guardian had entrusted them to the human section of the station while attending a diplomatic conference. Hannah had volunteered for babysitting duty, though babysitting felt inadequate when describing the care of 4 apex predator offspring whose species dominated 3-star systems. Hannah Guardian, the largest cub, Zrel chittered in broken standard. "You are damaged?" She smiled, setting down the regenerator. "Just a scratch, buddy, see? Almost healed already." She held up her arm, showing where the pink line of new skin had already begun to fade. The cubs approached cautiously, their multiple pupils dilating as they examined her arm. Their species, the creche, were engineered warriors, created millennia ago by a long-dead civilization to serve as living weapons. Their culture revolved around strength, honor, and the scars that prove survival. Hannah had read the briefings. She knew that creche younglings were taught from birth that scars were sacred, permanent testaments to battles survived and lessons learned. "The wound disappears?" asked Venna, the smallest cub, her head crest flattening in confusion. "Yeah, humans have pretty good medical technology," Hannah explained, pulling up a holographic display of human physiology. "We can heal most injuries without leaving marks. Keeps us functional longer." Zrel's crest flared bright orange, a color Hannah had learned meant distress or disagreement. "But then, how do others know your victories? How do you remember your defeats?" Hannah paused, struck by the weight of the question coming from such a young creature. In creche culture, every scar told a story. Warriors could read each other's histories in the patterns etched across their scales. To erase a scar would be to erase honor itself. "We remember up here," Hannah said, tapping her temple, "and sometimes in other ways. We take pictures, write journals, tell stories." The cubs exchanged glances, their bioluminescence flickering in rapid patterns, a private language Hannah couldn't fully decipher. Zrel approached closer, extending one clawed appendage toward a faint white line on Hannah's hand that the regenerator hadn't quite erased. "This one is old," he observed. "You kept this medal?" Hannah laughed softly, looking at the decade-old scar from her academy days. I got this being stupid with a plasma cutter. Not exactly metal-worthy. You survived plasma fire," Venna exclaimed, her whole body lighting up with excitement. "That is great honor." "I survived my own clumsiness," Hannah corrected, but the cubs weren't listening. They had clustered around her, examining every visible centimeter of skin with newfound reverence. They found the surgical scar on her knee from a childhood accident, a burn mark on her shoulder from a coolant leak, and a dozen other tiny imperfections that medical technology hadn't completely erased or that she'd never bothered to treat. Over the following days, Hannah noticed a change in how the cubs interacted with her. They brought her small gifts, shiny bits of metal, unusual stones from the station's garden, even a few of their own shed scales. When she asked Harry, her fellow human crewmate and the station's xenopsychologist, about the behavior, he nearly choked on his coffee. "They're treating you like a decorated war hero," Harry explained, pulling up his datapad to show her creche cultural files. "See here? Gift-giving to scarred elders is how young creche show respect. They think you're some kind of badass survivor." "I patched a cut with a medical device," Hannah protested. "How does that make me a hero?" Harry grinned. "You showed them you had the power to erase scars but chose to keep some. In their culture, that's like, imagine a human with the power to become immortal but choosing to stay mortal to truly live. It's profound to them." The situation became more complicated when the cub's guardian, Commander Threx, returned. The massive creche warrior stood 3 meters tall, his body a tapestry of scars that glowed faintly in the dim lighting. He listened as Zrel excitedly explained everything they'd learned about Hannah Guardian and her medals of survival. Hannah braced herself for anger or offense at the cultural misunderstanding. Instead, Threx's crest flared a warm golden color, amusement she'd learned. "The cubs believe you choose your scars wisely," Threx rumbled. his voice like grinding stone. They think humans possess the wisdom to know which battles are worth remembering permanently. That's not exactly, Hannah began, but Threx raised one massive claw. Let them believe, he said quietly. My people are warriors born. But we struggle to teach our young that not every fight must be won, that some wounds are lessons rather than trophies. You have shown them, accidentally, that strength can include restraint. That healing is not weakness but choice. Hannah looked down at the four cubs who gazed up at her with their luminescent eyes full of admiration. Z'rell stepped forward, presenting her with something she hadn't expected, one of his primary scales, carefully removed and polished. For your collection of medals, Hannah Guardian, he said formally. So you remember teaching us. She accepted the scale with trembling hands, understanding the magnitude of the gift. In Kresh culture, freely given scales were rare tokens of the deepest respect. She attached it to her duty jacket right above her heart. I'll treasure it, she promised. As the cubs departed with their guardian, Harry sidled up beside her. So, how does it feel to be a legendary human warrior in the eyes of baby apex predators? Hannah touched the scale on her jacket and smiled. Like I finally understand why some scars are worth keeping. In the cycles that followed, word spread among the Kresh fleet about the human who chose her scars wisely. It became a story told to younglings, a bridge between species, and Hannah never used the dermal regenerator quite the same way again. Some marks, she decided, were meant to be remembered,